how did you go about selecting the school? Did they select you? Did you apply to different places or find one chance that just fit you well?
I'm extremely intentional and I'm very goal oriented. I know that we talked about this. And so, toward the end of my graduate assistant position at Kentucky, I sat down with the director, and that was a new director at the time. Stephanie Tracy Simmons had moved up to admin. John Spurlock was then the director, and that was someone that I had worked with very closely while he was the assistant there. And so, we had sat down toward the end and he was like, write out all of your goals. What do you want to accomplish in this field? How are we going to go about doing it? And so I had realized that I made this big jump from D3 to D1, from, Wisconsin Oshkosh to, Lexington, Kentucky with the SEC, school. And I didn't have any steps in between. And I felt like that was really lacking in my development.
Mm,
And so one of the things that I did when looking for a full-time position is I said I wanna go to a mid-major school. I wanna go to something that's smaller, not a D3, still D1, but I wanna understand what team dynamics are like. I wanna know what it's like to have maybe less resources. I wanna know what it's like to have, athletes of different talent skills and athletes that their goal is not to be professional, it's to go into the career force and
mhm.
figure out that life. And so I said that I wanted something smaller. And so when I was looking for full time positions, VCU was a perfect fit. And I ended up applying there, and it was one of those moments where your timeline is running out a little bit, and it's like, "All right, I either get this job or I pack up my stuff and go back home," and this was a great experience. And Tim Contos at VCU just happened to call, and it was a great opportunity to be there, and I took that position because it was everything that I had said that I wanted in my first role.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I don't know if maybe that was just a little bit of fate or maybe that was just planning on my part or whatever it may be, but I'm super thankful that my first full-time position was something smaller, so I felt like I could fill that gap.
Yeah, I like VCU and then know Daniel Roos,
Yes.
basketball strength and conditioning coach. I know him through UT, University of Texas,
Yeah,
but then he came from VCU and went back to
he
VCU.
did. It's a special place.
Uh-huh, and in speaking with him just through the conferences, he liked it because he had 4 years to develop dudes
Absolutely.
versus the UT was a lot of one and done guys, a
Yeah,
lot of lottery guys,
yeah.
so I was like, "Man, I admire that," and he's also got some property and raising a family, so
He's
it
crushing it.
yeah.
And you get the ability to do things like that at a smaller university because, sometimes you have so many athletes and so many teams that you just can't be at every practice or every game or whatever it is. So you try to make an impact in the areas that you're able to, but at the same time, you can have a family and
Mhm.
have things outside of coaching that you really enjoy so that you're not only defined by your coaching role.
Yeah, that's a good mindset to highlight as a coach, because sometimes coaches, you got long hours, you don't get a lot of gratitude thrown your
Yeah.
way, so you can focus on the negatives, but then you're highlighting a lot of the positives in a mid-major school situation that are there's chances to grow as a person outside of your job.
Absolutely. And I think that it's great to highlight that because I think a lot of young coaches sometimes go for the logo. They want the logo on the chest or they want a name or they want whatever. And there's nothing wrong with, being somewhere that's smaller and developing
Mhm.
as a coach. And that's one of the stories that I've told before is, at Kentucky, I missed out on being a grad assistant the first time around. I didn't get the position. And at the time, I felt very jaded and thought that it was a slight at me. But I realized I got the opportunity to really develop,
Mhm.
and that was super beneficial down the line, and same thing with VCU. I mean, Tim Contos did a great job of mentoring me and really developing me as a young coach and just person that a lot of the tools that I learned there have been super valuable.
How long were you there?
VCU was about 4 years.
4 years, it's a good chunk of change.
Yeah, you get to see athletes go from freshman to senior, like we talked about. And that's massive because there's always a rotating door of strength and conditioning coaches. And
Mhm.
so, for an athlete to have continuity throughout their entire time as an athlete, I think is super beneficial to them as well.
Yeah, especially on the Olympic side, a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah, with the team, and then stepping into that role, I noticed a lot of athletes that maybe they had 1, 2, 3 coaches before me, and this is their senior year. It was a lot of back off. I don't know how to describe it, but
Yeah.
just a sense of
Apprehension almost.
apprehension.
Because it's like, where's the long-term development for that athlete?
It's yeah, where I'm coming in as a positive force, they're holding back for some reason. So then just feeling and seeing that, and then, spending more time with them or finding ways to communicate and have
Yeah,
an impact.
absolutely.
The So from VCU, where do we go?
We go to Clemson.
The beautiful Greenville, South
Yes.
Carolina, another
Well,
beautiful city.
yeah, so, we're about 40 minutes from Greenville.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Clemson is its own little college town, tucked away in South Carolina.
So I haven't been to Clemson campus. I had an interview at Furman University,
Okay,
and
and that's in Greenville.
that is beautiful.
Yeah.
That is when I think Greenville, that's what I think about.
It's a great city.
Mhm.
It really is. And Clemson, like I said, it's just kind of very small town college atmosphere, and it's, about 40 minutes from Greenville, so you're not too far away, but everything is all Clemson there. So,
I believe it. What a color scheme.
yeah.
I think it's the only orange and purple team out there.
Is it? Ah, I haven't done the research.
I haven't either, just the winning wise. The only winners with orange and purple.
Yeah. Well, we gotta love the contrasting colors for a university.
Yeah, it's unique. You stick out.
Absolutely. People can notice that color scheme anywhere. And it's so funny. One of my friends worked at LSU and, they're yellow and purple. And he's like, it's very normal to have yellow and purple, but you don't realize just how loud that is outside of LSU. And
Mhm.
so, same thing for Clemson.
Yeah. And so now were you working with one sport? Were you multiple sports? How did this transition change where you're growing into a now back to a Power 4 university?
Yeah. So my goal, again, when we sit back and think about the goals, my goal was to, after mid-major, find that big university again. And I knew that I really enjoyed the SEC and I wanted to take a step into another conference. And so again, that was my intention. I wanted to be part of an ACC school, you know, explore another state, another city, all of that stuff. And so stepping into the role at Clemson, when I interviewed for that role originally, it was a softball position with potential for some other sports. Was it going to be rowing? Was it going to be tennis? It was really kind of up in the air. Softball was a brand new program there.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so they had just started the program, hired, the head coach, John Rittman, who's awesome, has a massive background in coaching and working with USA softball. So he really is doing awesome. And when I interviewed there, like I said, it was for softball, and I knew that. And so I knew that that was my angle to get the position. And so I really did my best to impress John and really outline what it would look like to take a team that's never competed in college and really make them a contender. And so when I talked to him, I didn't talk to him about, we're going to trap bar deadlift, or we're going to clean, or we're going to, I didn't do these things. I said, we're going to, talk about culture,
Mhm.
and we're going to lay the foundation for a winning team. And this is exactly how I'm going to do it. And I, gave him, by season what I'm looking for. And luckily I got the position at Clemson. And when I got there, it was in the summer, and soccer is training in the summer. That's kind of their time to train, getting ready for season. And my director at Clemson, he was like, we want to feel out your second sport. We know softball is going to be the first one. What do you think about soccer? Like, I noticed that you're doing really well with them. And I was like, I would love it. I said, I was like, if I could have soccer and softball here, like, I will be so happy. And so that ended up being my role. So I took on soccer and softball and ran the internship department while
That's
we were there.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I love coaching coaches.
it's great. And the idea of mentoring and helping young professionals is something that I've always wanted to do. And I did it at VCU, and I got to continue that at Clemson. And I just think having really great mentors helped me. And so I
Mhm.
just wanted to pass that down to other people.
So we'll stay with that. How did you structure the development, the education? Did it start with the book and then get to the floor? Do we start with communication and sprinkle in the The X's and O's?
Yeah, I mean, they were different programs at VCU versus Clemson, and so when I got to Clemson, they had already had a curriculum in place, and basically it was my job to revamp. Maybe we could take some things from that curriculum, but really build out this program. And so what we did was a combination of things. So they were given a ton of information as far as our technology that we were going to utilize, how to run and troubleshoot it. So there was a technology component, there was a coaching component. They had to learn how to regress and progress and cue our 6 main lifts before we allowed them to coach the athletes. So they had to take me through them and pass them through the lifting stuff, just so that we're all on the same page of how we cue, how
Yeah.
we verbalize. There's no confusion for the athletes. And then the other component of it was just education.
Mhm.
And so for me, the other big part that I wanted to bring to the Clemson curriculum was leadership, because I knew how important it is as a strength and conditioning coach to have really strong leadership skills. And so what I did was I made them read a leadership book throughout the course of the semester. And so we had, I guess, those 4 main components.
Well, let's hang out in leadership for a while. What were those 4 books? Did it change every year for you as you learned?
So it did not change because every time we would get a new batch of interns.
Mhm.
And so I wanted them to have certain tools as we go through. So when I was at VCU, I did the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership as their main book. So every couple of weeks, they would have chapters due to me about a lesson that they learned. When I got to Clemson, the book that I had them read was Chop Wood, Carry Water,
Right.
talking about the process.
Mhm.
And I thought that that was super important for interns to understand, to continue with the process because you're just starting out in your coaching development.
Mhm.
And so what I excuse me, what I had them do was we would have chapters due every, week, and they had to take the lessons that they learned from that book and how does that apply to your situation now?
Mhm.
And so that was the development that I would have for them.
Yeah, I like that. It's setting a foundation for self-awareness. So we're not just reading this and memorizing this like they did in undergrad.
Absolutely.
Now it's more of a graduate style here where it's read this and now think through it, communicate through it, and how does this apply to your team, your situation? And so help us walk through, did you prepare them not only to speak to athletes, but also speak to sport coaches? Because that's another challenge. And I mean, it got you the job at Clemson.
Yeah.
Is your communication leading up? One book that I really love and will highly recommend is John C. Maxwell's 360-degree leadership. View that as a strength coach because I got to lead up to head coach. I got teammates here at ATC or another co-strength coach, and then I lead down to my team, and then I view team captains as that 360
Mm.
because you're leading up to sport coach, you're leading down to team, and you're caught in the middle sometimes.
Yeah. So that was actually a part of the curriculum that I was looking to build. During as I was kind of exiting Clemson, one of the things that we were looking to develop was we wanted to develop our interns to be able to speak to sport coaches, have a really great interview. How do you interview? And so the thought process was let's take an assistant sport coach that maybe is looking for a head coaching position, and they get the opportunity to interview a strength and conditioning professional because that might be part of their role
Oh yeah.
as a head coach. So we're giving them mock interview experience. Let's get our interns to mock interview with that assistant sport coach so that they could understand how to interview with a sport coach and get the job. And so again, we didn't get to that point while I was there at Clemson, but that was the thought process,
Hmm.
is let's make this mutually beneficial for both sides so that a sport coach can then move up and be ahead, but also our department is teaching these young coaches how to act professionally in that setting and really kind of land the interview and get the job.
Hmm.
So that was the thought, and I wish we would have gotten there, but maybe someone else out there can can take that and run with it. But I would like to get to that point because it's such an important part of what we do, and I feel like it's never talked about or taught.
Nope. Yeah, we battle a lot of assumptions with that that this podcast, so like, that's a big one,
Yeah,
is even that interview process for the sport coach down to the strength coach, because you can get sold a lot of magic beans.
absolutely.
And I've lost out on jobs to people that I know are not the right person and fit for the sport or the team, and then at that stage, I just watch them fail, unfortunately. I know the athletes that are getting hurt, that are not competing to the highest level or their potential, and I just gotta eat it.
And you know what? An interesting part of this story, and I don't know how many people know this, and I'm not sure if you know this, but originally when I interviewed for the job at Clemson, I didn't get a call back. Um, and so it's like, how did I get that job? And actually me understanding how to talk to a sport coach is what saved me, because I knew that I was like, okay, maybe the strength and conditioning department doesn't think that I'm a great fit for their department. I'm gonna, let the sport coach know that I'm a great fit for that sport. And so that's why I was saying I knew that that was my angle, and I knew that that was a great place for me, and that I would be a great fit. And I just had to display that.
Mhm,
And I'm thankful that I got the opportunity to do that, because that helped me get my job there at Clemson. And the softball team did amazing. Their first season was cut because of COVID. We were in 2020, but when they had the opportunity to have their first full season, they won the ACC in the regular season. So we did an awesome job, and I knew that we were going to do that because we were laying down the correct foundation, and I knew that I would be a great fit for that position.
mhm.
So,
So
crazy.
yeah. So what was your step? Did you cold email the coach to follow up?
I did not. So, yeah. So what happened was, I had interviewed for the position, and it was just a phone interview. And they had asked me a question that really tripped me up, almost like your Olympic lifting one with
Well, I
Kentucky,
got hung
right?
up on.
Yeah. They asked me a question about research. Who do I research? What do I look into? And I was like, well, I don't research people. I research things I'm interested in. And, if I have a question, then I'll seek out more. And they're like, well, who? And I was like, well, I go to my circle first. And then they're like, no, but like, give us a name. I was like, and I kind of tripped up on the question about research. And I was told, like, hey, we appreciate it, but we just don't think that this is going to be a good fit. And they're very research based, and I got it. I understood that, maybe that was my weak point. And I was like, okay, reflecting forward, like, all right, maybe I can do some more of this moving forward in my career. And I'm never going to have that be the hang up again.
Mhm.
And it just so happened that maybe 2 days later, the director called me back, and he's like, hey, actually, we'd like to bring you on. We had someone that we wanted to bring, and they decided against it. So I knew, and
Why would they say that?
yeah,
But
but I knew in my head, I was like, I'm not their pick. I'm fourth at best. How do I get this job? And so that's where I was like, that's a softball job. I'm going to start doing a ton of research. It's a brand new program. Let's talk about leadership, and let's talk about culture. And I'm going to learn a lot about the coach, because I want him to know I'm invested from the start.
mhm.
And that was what I did.
Yeah. I'm just dumbfounded on how, and now I understand why you wanna teach social intelligence to coaches, because of the experience that you had been given
Yeah.
as an applicant. Wow. That is mind-blowing to me, how they manage that situation with you. That's unfortunate.
It is, but you know what? Again, it was a great learning tool, and I was just myself on the interview. And, I got feedback on the interview from the strength and conditioning department, and they told me, they were like, the minute we met you, we knew this was a perfect fit. Maybe it just didn't come across on the phone, but the minute that I got to be in front of them and really display who I was, they were like, this is it.
That that's what I feel I want all coaching interviews to be in person, because
Yeah.
it is so much of a feel.
Yeah.
And then why a big goal and mission of this is as many in-person podcasts as I can do, because 93% of communication is just right here, us
Talking.
picking up on cues and speaking with body language and breaking rules together
Of course.
over here. And yeah, so in coaching is just such a feel and push that, if I'm going to spend so much time in the same room as you, I want you to feel and experience what my presence is like
Yeah.
versus on the phone that I
It
know it
doesn't
doesn't translate.
It doesn't. Like you said, it was an interesting experience, but for me, it was an opportunity to reflect because I was like, "Oh, maybe this is a downfall, that a weakness, like a sore point for me. Maybe I should research more."
Mhm.
And because the program was so technologically based and research based and pushed education, I really got to fulfill that part of maybe my development while I was at Clemson. So that was pretty awesome.